More than 100,000 people have been evacuated out of Afghanistan since August 14th. Only a small portion of Afghans who have managed to get on a flight have actually entered the U.S. They must go through multiple screenings before they are allowed here. Some face additional screenings once they make it to America. Axios reports the vetting process is 14 steps long for some people who have helped the U.S. military. Stef Kight wrote that piece. She is a political reporter for Axios. Stef, thanks very much for being with us. So walk us through the categories people who are leaving Afghanistan for the U.S. fit into.
Right. So the first category is, of course, U.S. citizens and green card holders who were in Afghanistan and are now trying to escape and come to the U.S. There are also the interpreters and other people who help the U.S. military in Afghanistan who qualify for special immigrant visas. And the further along they are in that 14-step process, the more likely it is that they're going to get on those planes to the U.S. quicker. There's also a new refugee category for other Afghans who don't qualify for that SIV process, but who have also helped the U.S. military. And then, of course, the last category is just your usual refugees, the people who are able to flee Afghanistan and then down the road are able to be resettled into the U.S.
And Steph, what is the process for most Afghans to actually make it to the U.S. after they have landed somewhere outside of Afghanistan?
Right. So after, they've made it through the Taliban checkpoints and through the mobs at the airport, hopefully safely onto the planes, they're being taken to transit countries. The one that we've seen used the most in the past was the one in Qatar, which Axios reported there were really horrible conditions there. There are a few other U.S. bases that are being used now. So people are being taken to places like Germany, for example, and other places. And it's there that they'll be processed and vetted. The U.S. will vet them, go through their regular process, screening, and from there they'll get on planes to the U.S. The State Department has said that they do not have to get tested or have a negative COVID test before they travel to the U.S., but upon arrival at U.S. airports, Afghans and people leaving Afghanistan are being tested in the airport before continuing on with the process.
That was going to be my question, is how is the coronavirus affecting that process of bringing people out of Afghanistan? Yet one more complication here in that process. Well, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has implemented humanitarian parole to let people fleeing into the U.S. who would normally have no legal status. So who has this helped so far?
Well, we know that the humanitarian parole has been used for people who are in the special immigrant visa pipeline but have not yet received their visas. As I mentioned, and you mentioned before, it's a long process. And while they're trying to get people out quickly, that doesn't allow everyone who would qualify for these visas to actually finish that process. So by using humanitarian parole, the DHS secretary is allowing people to be here in the U.S. while that process carries out. The administration has said that they are using humanitarian parole for potentially other vulnerable Afghans, but it's not yet clear how many other people they're going to use that mechanism for, whether they'll expand it to, refugees outside of the SIV category. That's something that certainly a lot of advocates are asking the administration to do, to use that power to bring more people to the U.S. and quicker. But the numbers are still, we're still waiting to see exactly how many people are benefiting from this.
All right, an urgent situation. Stef Kight for us. Stef, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.